big spoilers for Mandalorian Chapter 16 are ahead.
Are you crying?
Welcome to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Erie, and this is all the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the season finale of The Mandalorian Season 2. Wow. What an episode. We have a lot to talk about. The episode opens with Slave One chasing an Imperial shuttle carrying Dr. Pershing. Now it's confirmed that
this is a clone engineer.
But because of the Kaminoan patch he wears on his arm, we figured him for a cloner pretty much the whole time.
The whole time
They hit them with an ion cannon that disables their electronics. Now these cannons are also what allowed the rebels to escape Hoth and the Empire Strikes Back. So I haven't mentioned this in a video yet, but this sigil on Fett's armor is the symbol of Jaster Morrell. He was the Mandalorian who gifted Boba Fett his armor, as verified by his chain code that we saw 2 episodes ago. This episode is actually a reunion for Ming-Na Wen and Thomas E. Sullivan, who were both on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And by the way, Ming-Na Wen is 57 years old. Can you believe that? She looks great. He points out the teardrop Rebel Alliance symbol on Cara Dune's cheek. Now this is the first time we learned that this is in honor of her home planet of Alderaan.
What?
He also claims that he was part of the Death Star crew.
Destroying your planet was a small price to pay to rid the galaxy of terrorism.
Now, this whole conversation reminded me of this famous sequence in Clerks.
You're a roofer. Some juicy government contract comes your way. Along come these left-wing militants and blast everything within a 3-mile radius with their lasers.
This season, we've seen the galaxy from the point of view of the common Imperial soldier. Mayfeld didn't want to kill innocents during Operation Cinder, and the TIE Fighters were the heroes in Chapter 15. And in this episode, we see the TIE Fighters actually taking off up close. This whole sequence is very reminiscent of how the Vipers launched on Battlestar Galactica, a show that also starred Katie Sackhoff. When Slave One lands on this planet, it parks next to the Gauntlet, Bo-Katan's ship from Season 7 of the Clone Wars. Thanks Darth Mikey for pointing that one out. And by the way, the factories on the planet where they land actually have the symbol of the Old Republic on them and not the Empire. Meaning these plants have been around for a long time, and this is probably a good place to hide away from any Imperial entanglements. Now, there's a few species in the bar that you might recognize. There's Aqualish, Rodian, and I'm pretty sure this is a Sabbat. Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves are sitting in front of a menu. And look, I always translate the Aurebesh letters, but the analytics are telling me that people always stop watching when I list every single thing that I find. So I'm just going to go over some of the menu items, and I'm going to list the whole thing in the description. That way I can run up the number on the thumbnail. The menu references the fruit Melurun from the Rebels episode where they steal a TIE fighter, appropriate since in this episode the heroes steal an Imperial light cruiser. They also serve Rata stew. Those are rats in Star Wars talk. There's also roast nuna, that's these animals from Tatooine that we saw served in the Clone Wars. And then Endorian tiw-wiy. I'm guessing that's some kind of Ewok delicacy that became popular after the Battle of Endor.
Silent breed is people!
But the best menu items are at the bottom. Space waffles and Veg-Meat. Sounds like even in a galaxy far, far away, you can find the Goo Man.
I am a goo man.
Koska Reeves is played by Mercedes Varnado, better known as the wrestler Sasha Banks, and appropriately she pulls off a tornado DDT on Boba Fett here. And before the fight starts, she mentions,
You'll be talking through the window of a Bacta tank.
the same substance that healed Luke in Empire Strikes Back and Din Djarin last season. And, by the way, the reason she and Koska Reeves have helmets painted to look like owls is because they're part of the Night Owls, a group of female Mandalorian warriors. Now when they talk about reclaiming Mandalore, Boba Fett says,
The Empire turned that planet to glass.
and this is because Mandalore is a desert, and when you melt sand, it creates glass. But then she hits him where it hurts, calling him a clone.
I've heard your voice thousands of times.
Now this has to be a sore spot for Boba Fett. For his whole life, he's been mistaken for a drone, a soldier of the Republic. And how about this?
You are not a Mandalorian.
Never said I was.
Bitch, yes you did, 2 episodes ago.
This is me, Boba Fett. This is my father, Jango Fett.
But this need for legitimacy is what drove Boba Fett to succeed, but more on that in the post-credits scene. And when they run through the plan, Pershing really talks up the Dark Trooper droids.
These are 3rd generation design. They are no longer suits. The human inside was the final weakness to be solved.
These robots from Chapter 14 were first seen in the Dark Forces video game, but were made canon in the mobile game Star Wars Commander. But in the show Star Wars Rebels, you can see a precursor to them with these Imperial Sentry droids. And I didn't notice this before, but their face seems designed to mimic Darth Vader's mask. And when they boot up, these Aurebesh letters say DT followed by their number. This is our assistant manager, Doug. He's technically my boss, and he actually had an Easter egg that he noticed. Doug, what was that again? Let me know if you think Doug is reaching down in the comments below. On the way to the cruiser, Bo-Katan says,
Moff Gideon is mine. Got it?
Now, this is because she wants the Darksaber. I went into more detail on this in our History of Mandalore video, which is linked in the description below. But basically, the Darksaber belonged to a Mandalorian Jedi, and now it's seen as kind of a symbol of Mandalorian leadership that can only be won in combat, kind of like the Elder Wand, but in space. It's previously been wielded by Darth Maul and a character named Sabine Wren from Star Wars Rebels. But Sabine freely gave it away to Bo-Katan. She accepted and ruled Mandalore until Moff Gideon defeated her. So you might be wondering, if she accepted the Darksaber as a gift before, why not now?
It doesn't work that way.
Well, I think it's because accepting the Darksaber and then losing it in combat was a sign of weakness. Now she needs to prove to her people that she's worthy of it by defeating Moff Gideon. Okay, so now we'll have this weird power struggle between the rightful ruler, Bo-Katan, and the reluctant heir, Din Djarin.
I don't want it.
And this type of pastry
They're gonna be a real skink in the scud pie.
was mentioned in Chapter 10.
There is one small skank in the scud pot.
They mentioned that Gideon is ex-ISB. That stands for Imperial Security Bureau, the secret police of the Empire. These guys. When they board the ship, the Imperial siren blares, just like we first heard in the original trilogy. Din passes by an RA-7 droid that we first saw in a sandcrawler in A New Hope. Holy crap, Beskar is tough. Now, you would have thought this would have at least broken Din Djarin's neck or his nose, but that sound his helmet makes when he takes it off means that the helmet is pressurized, so when he gets hit in the face, his helmet doesn't bang up against his nose, his head moves along with it. Cara Dune says,
Ferric.
a curse word that keeps coming up this season.
Dink Ferric.
Dang Ferric.
Ferric.
But she also says,
Son of a mud scuffer.
the Star Wars equivalent of the sounds Joe Pesci made in Home Alone.
What?
And how about this sequence? That's just fun, family entertainment for all ages. Grogu is being held with manacles that use ray shields to contain his tiny little hands. This is similar to the force fields that held Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones.
All I wanted was to study his blood.
We have a video coming out where I go into more detail about Gideon's plan and what he wanted Grogu's blood for, so keep an eye out for that. Basically though, I'm thinking the bodies in a jar we saw in Chapter 12 were attempts to clone Palpatine, and they needed Grogu's midichlorians to make the clones force sensitive. This is why he says,
And has been blessed with rare properties that have the potential to bring order back to the galaxy.
I could be wrong. He might be making an army of Force-sensitive clones. Let me know your theories down in the comments. I know it's been a really exciting week with all the new Star Wars and Marvel announcements, but here's a little tip for you to make Disney Plus even better. Pretty soon, you'll be able to use Disney Plus to watch some R-rated Fox properties like Logan, Die Hard, and the Alien franchise. But only if you live in Europe, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. So if you don't live in any of those countries, there's a cheaper solution. Get NordVPN, the sponsor of this week's video. NordVPN has thousands of super fast servers all over the world. So you're able to register your IP address from another country where you can watch R-rated content on Disney+. If you are interested, go to nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush to get 68% off a 2-year plan. Now that's just $3.71 a month. And there's a special holiday deal that's available for a limited time only. If you use the code ScreenCrush at checkout, you get an additional 4 months for free. And if you find out the service isn't right for you, there's no pressure. They give you your money back after 30 days. See, lots of streaming sites offer different programming in other countries. Using NordVPN is the best way to get your money's worth out of all these different streaming services. It's like adding free streaming sites on top of the ones that you're already paying for, all for just $3.71 a month. So again, visit nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush or click the link down in the description below. All right, back to the Easter eggs. Now let's take a moment to shout out Ludwig Göransson's score in this and every episode, particularly the way he revisits Moff Gideon's theme during this fight. And when those dark troopers return from the vacuum of space, made me think of this.
You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you? You know, for a second there? Yeah, I kind of did.
Fennec Shan says,
Seal the blast doors.
which we've heard before.
Close the blast doors!
This is the old trope of the monster at the door that was subverted in Phantom Menace by showing the good guys could be the monsters at the door. And then, oh boy, the X-Wing lands. You knew then, right? But I still thought it would be a bait and switch. Like we would think it would be Luke, but it'd be Ezra or just some New Republic commandos. But here he is, Luke Skywalker, still wearing his black Return of the Jedi costume. Which, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna nitpick for a second. He only wore black in that movie so the filmmakers could show him slipping toward the dark side. Like how he wore white in A New Hope, gray in Empire, and then at the end of Jedi, his shirt flap is gray again. I didn't think he'd be running around the galaxy dressed as a Sith, but whatever, it's still really cool. And, by the way, when he force chokes this droid, it reminded me a lot of this move of his dad's. And I love how immediately scared Moff Gideon is. He probably fought in the Clone Wars. He's seen what Jedi can do firsthand. He might also be one of the few people who know the Emperor was killed by a Jedi. So if you were watching the Dark Troopers and wondering, so why did the Republic use a clone army instead of droids? These things are badass. Here's why. The Army of the Republic was actually created to kill all the Jedi, and they tear through droids like a Wookiee into a space waffle. It was so badass watching a fully powered Luke Skywalker unleashing his abilities. This is also kind of a counterpoint to that Vader hallway fight from Rogue One. It also occurred to me that the characters are watching this on a TV monitor, and so are we. So it was a cool way to kind of give us all the same perspective. When Luke finally enters the room, he removes his hood, just like all Jedi are always introduced.
Hello there.
And of course, we hear his theme, the binary sunset. What did you think of the CGI rendered Luke? We've seen him and other original trilogy characters rendered like this in brief scenes, but this was a very important, very emotional, lengthy scene. For me, it felt just inside the uncanny valley.
Tell it to me in Star Wars.
All right, we like R2-D2 and C-3PO.
They're nice.
And up here, we have a real person, like Han Solo.
He acts like he doesn't care, but he does.
But down here, we have a CGI stormtrooper or Tom Hanks in the Polar Express.
I'm scared.
This whole scene tore me up. I was willing to overlook Star Wars Battlefront Luke because God did I cry. And I know you're wondering, if Grogu goes with Luke, does that mean Kylo Ren killed him at the temple?
He had vanished with a handful of my students and slaughtered the rest.
I went into this in our Ending Explained video, but I really doubt it. I think when the next trilogy starts, set a few hundred years in the future, an elderly Grogu will be leading the new Jedi Council. And then R2-D2 enters because his contract states he gets to appear in every Star Wars property. The episode's emotional climax is when Din Djarin revealed his face to Grogu for the first time. But this is also his first time seeing Grogu clearly, not through the infrared of his helmet. So there's symmetry here with Darth Vader's final wish.
Just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes.
Because for years, he saw the world through an ugly red tint. Padme, help me take these pants off. For once, let me sit on you with my own thighs. Din Djarin removing his helmet's been foreshadowed all season. By Cobb Vanth, by Bo-Katan, and of course, last episode. I kind of think him removing his helmet in Chapter 15 did undercut this episode's reveal a tad. If you agree, let me know down in the comments. And the ending actually accomplished the impossible. It made me hate Luke Skywalker. He gives Din Djarin the Mr. Wing speech from Gremlins.
He is strong with the Force, but talent without training is nothing.
You are not ready.
And that's it. God, this sucks. I mean, it's nice for everybody, but it really sucks. Grogu leaving his family behind is, of course, how Jedi have trained Padawans for centuries, and his goodbye even mirrors Anakin's to his mother Shmi.
I will come back and free you, Mom. I promise.
I'll see you again. I promise.
I just hope Kylo Ren didn't kill him. The episode was directed by Ant-Man director Peyton Reed, and it was actually way better than either Ant-Man movie. It makes me really excited for Quantum Mania. Also, it was clever that they wrote Boba Fett out of this whole campaign, because had he been on the bridge, he probably would have attacked Luke for throwing him into a Sarlacc pit, even though it wasn't really his fault. Now let's talk about the post-credits scene. Jabba's palace on Tatooine, which we last saw live action in Return of a Jedi. There's a few familiar faces here that we saw in Episode 6. Now there's no telling if these are new characters of the same species, or if these were the people who stayed behind to cook the bacon while Jabba was throwing people in the Sarlacc pit. This Gran might be Ree-Yees from Jedi, and these are Gamorreans still guarding the joint, which was neatly foreshadowed in the season's opening scene. There's also a Nikto and a Weequay, and another Twi'lek dancing girl to replace Ula from Jedi. There's also a Quarren and one of the backup dancers that Boba was flirting with in Jedi Special Edition. And on the throne is the former Major Domo of Jabba the Hutt, Bib Fortuna. It's interesting that the Hutt crime syndicate let him run the place instead of installing one of their own. But then again, it looks like he's ruling just like Jabba did, gaining weight and fashioning a throne with the same sculptures that line Jabba's sled. And then he says my new favorite Star Wars curse word. as infamous after Greedo said it in the 3rd revision of the Greedo shooting first scene.
I bet you have. My monkey.
And then I got a good look at the throne, which for some reason is carved with ancient Jedi runes that we first saw in the Old Republic video game, but have appeared on the Seeing Stone in Chapter 14. And these didn't exactly match up to the translation I found on the internet, but it looks like the top reads Boba over and over and over, and then at the bottom there's one encrypted name that took me forever to solve. This is your mom. And then of course he sits on the throne to claim Jabba's empire as his own, while Fennec Shand drinks a pitcher of spotchka, the wine that the peasants made in episode 4 last season, and that Cobb Vanth drank in Chapter 9. And we're getting a spin-off that Lucasfilm failed to announce last Thursday, a new series called The Book of Fett. Well everybody, it's been a blast covering The Mandalorian with you this year. Stay tuned, we have lots more Mandalorian and other videos coming out that you're going to love. Well, that's all the Easter eggs I found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I am Ryan Airy. Your mom.